Hey everybody, this is Linda with Ink Stamp and Scrap, and we're going to get started in just a minute. All right, if you're here, please leave me a comment. Let me know what the last thing you made was. Let me bring me in here. Hey there. Nice of you to join me today. For those of you that are on Team Replay, please leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about these projects and if you're planning on giving it a try. Today, we're going to talk about a never-ending card, an infinity card, an endless card. It just depends on what reference you want to use, but I'm going to show you exactly how to make it. I have a few samples of how to use it, but the thing that I really want to teach you today are all the tips and tricks I learned along the way as I was creating these over and over again, so that you can learn from my mistakes and they can go together for you super fast. All right, so as you're coming in, let me know the last thing that you created, and if you're on Team Replay, you can do the same as well. Just leave me a comment. That would be awesome. And please, if you wouldn't mind, do all the YouTube things, the like, the subscribe, and definitely leave a comment. All of it helps with the algorithm. All right, I'm going to switch over here. There we go. All right, so this is what we have for today. We have the endless, never-ending, infinite card. And what happens is you open it up and down, and then side to side, and then up and down again, and then side to side, and you're back to the beginning. You could use this for holiday time. You could use this for just birthday time. It's just a really fun card. And the thing I think about when I look at these are the cards that you want for the late elementary school age, something that entertains them, something fun that they can open up and keep playing with. Because I'm telling you, once you start turning this, it's really hard to just set it down because you just want to keep going and you sort of think maybe you're going to see something different, but it really is just the same every time. All right, let me show you the dimensions and how you put it together. There will be a blog post up on inkstampindscrap.com in about an hour after we finish this. It will have a link to this video along with a PDF download that will show you all the dimensions and everything that you need to do this for yourself. All right, I've cut most of the paper already, but I do want to cut the base of the card and show you how that works. And I'll just do one set of the layers just to give you a handle on that. So if you're starting with an 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock, you're going to cut it at 4 1/4. And then you're going to cut it at 5 1/2 and use both the pieces on this side. There we go. All right. One of the pieces is going to end up being cut at 2 3/4 in half. That's the one that you're going to score at 1 1/16 on each side. This one is going to get cut in half at 2 1/8, and you're going to score it on each end at 1 3/8. So let's do that. So this one is the one that gets cut this way. So the scores go this way. So 1 1/16, and if you're using this trimmer, it's just one tick mark over. If you're not, just make sure that your trimmer goes all the way down to the 16th inch mark so that you can get this card to put together correctly. If you move this over to 1 1/8, it's not going to end up revolving the way that you want. So we scored it at 1 1/16 on each side. And now we're going to, hey, Kathy, now we're going to slice it at 2 3/4. Oh, wow, you just finished your first king size quilt. That is awesome. All right, so this is the piece that's going to get cut at 2 1/8, and we're going to score it at 1 3/8 on both ends. So on this trimmer, the nice thing is that this goes all the way to 1 1/2, so I can just use the smaller side to do all of my scoring. So I'm going to score at 1 3/8, and then I'm going to score at 1 3/8. And then I'm going to cut right down the middle at 2 1/8, which is the half point, the vertical half point on your card front. So this card ends up being 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. I don't need my trimmer. I don't need my trimmer for the card anymore. I am gonna, I'll do that in a minute. We're just gonna set that down. All right. So we have these 4 pieces now. What I learned is you can just put it together right now, but it does flip around much easier if you burnish all the score lines at this point. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to fold this down, and it doesn't matter where you start, just whatever the first piece is that you grab. And we're going to fold this one back and fold it up. I'm going to set this one off to the left. The center ones are the ones that were cut at 2 3/4 here. I just find it easier to arrange it this way for when I start gluing things together. Because ultimately, the ones that I'm scoring right now are going to be on the bottom, and the other 2 are going to be on the top. I did try assembling it the other way and putting this on top of these, and it works just fine. So I'm just going to just throw that out there. It does work just fine. I think it's a little more challenging just lining everything up the right way and where you put the glue, but it does work. So if you mess up and you start putting them together the opposite way that I say, keep going because the mechanism will work. It will turn into an endless card for you. Okay, so we're going to take care of this one other score here, and then we have done them all. And thank you guys for sharing this video. I really appreciate it. And just a shameless plug again for the YouTube things. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, click that notification bell. And if you wouldn't mind liking this video and leaving a comment after it's done, I would really appreciate it. All right, so we have these 4 pieces. Liquid glue does put this together best. You can certainly use any other kind of strong permanent adhesive. You could use Seal Plus, you could use tear and tape, but I did find that I liked the liquid glue the best because it gave me a little bit of wiggle room to line things up. So the first thing that I'm going to do is put about a 1/2 inch of glue in the top left corner of this one. So this is going to be the back side of the card to start, and it's the top left corner, and I'm going to match the one that I laid on the left to that one. So I'm going to aim for the corners to be as close as possible. And for this one, it's just important that these 2 edges line up perfectly before you squeeze this and set it. Because you know, liquid glue does give you a little time to move around, but not a lot of time. So there we go. We have that one done. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to put some liquid glue here, but we have more things to worry about because we're adding a third piece this time. So this time, not only do we want these two edges to line up, but we want to make sure that this butts up against this without overlapping in any way. So the first thing I do is just as close to where I think it's going to go as possible. I butt this one up and then I start feeling for the corner. I'm also eyeballing this to make sure they're laying flat. I'm going to make sure all the way down it's laying flat and that my score lines are lining up. There's lots of things to look at, lots of indicators. And as you're pushing the glue down, you want to make sure that it doesn't come apart at the end down here. So it's a lot of eyeballing, a lot of making sure. Oh, thanks, Sue. That's okay. I appreciate your efforts. All right. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to turn this over. Flip it this way. And now we have these two exposed, and this is going to go here. So we're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to put glue on both sides about a 1/2 inch down. And we're going to go ahead and finish off putting the card together. So these two ends need to go up here. This, holding in the middle because there's no glue in this middle panel, needs to butt up against here just like we did with the other ones. So we're going to do that. It's more important that the score lines line up and that you butt this against the right spot this time. It's nice if it all lines up, but if it doesn't, that's what your scissors come in handy for. We're paper crafters and things are off by a tiny bit every once in a while, and that's okay. We can clean it up. All right, so now I have my card together, and the important part is that these two and these two are moving freely. So now we can start. This is generally the front. Let me grab the one, I'll grab the penguin one you can see. So this is generally the front. We've got a little glue there. Let me wipe that off so it doesn't, and I know I'm going to have to do some trimming. All right, but you can see that we can fold it open and we can fold it up and down, and then we can fold it open again, and we're back. There we go. So we did complete the round and it is in good shape. Now we just need to kind of clean it up a little bit. So let me grab my scissors. And all I'm going to do is, hopefully you can see, let me bring you in just a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so right here, this edge is a little bit off. These edges look good, and these edges all look good, but this edge is a little bit off too. Trimming off the edges is not going to change the mechanism. That's why it's so important that you make sure that they butt up against each other without overlapping. Because you can't do, you're kind of done. There's not really any going back if this part and this part are not working well. But if it's not lined up perfectly on the edges, scissors can do the trick for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is fix this part. And it actually looks like it lines up okay until a little ways down. So I'm just going to trim off that part. See, it's barely anything. And then I'm going to flip it over because I can see that there's a little bit here too. And this is the other reason that you decorate it with designer series paper or some kind of patterned stamping, because you're leaving a little bit of an edge and no one will ever know you did this trimming. All right, that's not the best cutting ever. There we go. All right, so you're barely cutting anything off. I just like it to be clean. You could even leave it that way because the card is, like I said, the card is going to work just fine. All right, thanks, Pat. I appreciate that. And I'm so glad that you made it. All right. All right, here we go. All right, maybe I need to do a video about how to find me live, Pat. I think that might be a good idea. I hear that every once in a while. I think I take it for granted because I'm on here so much, like as a user just watching things. All right, so let's decorate this one just with the designer series paper so you can see how it goes together. The way that you cut your designer series paper is that you're going to use 2-inch strips. And the way I like to do that is to have two different patterns. So in this case, I have a flowered pattern and a leaf pattern, both from the, oh, you don't need to see it that close anymore, both from the designer series paper that is free to you in the celebration promotion. So if you spend $50 on other merchandise, you can pick up this beautiful set of paper. All right. So the way that you need, or the pieces that you need are 4 pieces of one, I'm going to call this pattern A, and you'll see that if you download the instructions. Pattern A, you need 4 pieces that are 2 by 2 and 5/8. And then you need pattern B, you also need 4 pieces, and we only have 3. I knew we had some to cut, that are 2 by 2 and 5/8. Then also from pattern A, you need 4 pieces that are 2 by 1 1/4. And last but not least, from pattern B, you need 2 pieces, maybe it's 4. You're going to need 2 pieces here. No, 4 pieces here that are 7/8 by 2 and 5/8. So let's get the remainder that we need from pattern B. I'm going to grab my trimmer and bring that in. And pattern A and B can be anything. So in this case, based on what I just said to you, this is pattern A, the purple, and this is pattern, this is pattern A because it's got the shorter ones, and this is pattern B. And then we're going to flip, and you can see the 4, and then we're going to flip again, and you can see those 2, and these kind of show through, because some things just show through. So you're not covering every single panel. All right, so from this one, we need it to be 2 inches wide. You can see that there in the camera just fine. So it needs to be 2 inches wide to make my last panel like this, and then 2 and 5/8. So that's a half plus 2 tick marks on this cutter. There we go. Okay, so now I have those. Now I'm going to cut this down to 7/8. There are a lot of 8ths and 16ths in this one. I think I might need 2 of these, but we'll see. 2 and 5/8. 2 and 5/8. You end up using just 2 inches, a 2-inch by 12-inch piece of one pattern, two 2-inch by 12 pieces of each pattern, and you're done. So it's really not a lot of designer series paper to make one of these. I find it way easier to do the 2 slices of 2-inch by 12-inch and then go from there. When I was cutting everything yesterday, I actually cut my finger on that lovely blade right there as I was trying to move it around, and that's why I have the Band-Aid today. So do be careful because it is a sharp blade. All right, a quarter, a half, and 2 more tick marks, and that'll give me my last, right, 1, 2, oh, I need 2 more. Okay, and then we can glue all the pieces where they go so you can see how this goes together. All right, 1, 2. Yeah, so it is a lot easier to make. And like I said, I made a bunch because the point of today's video is to really give you all the tips and tricks so the first time you try to do this, it's the easiest it can possibly be. right, I'm going to slide you out just a little bit more so I have a little more camera space to do the gluing. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to do is this panel right here. We're gonna do this one, and this uses the B's and the A's. So what I do, the way I know where I'm going is the one that cuts right down the middle, that's the one that uses these skinny B's. And the one that has the full side here that opens so nicely, that's the one that has the 4 up here and the 2 A's right here. Or sorry, the 2 B's. So these ones just get the leftovers, basically, is how it works out. So if you start with the side exposed where you have the center slice, I find it the easiest to get all of your panels correct. So the first thing that we're going to do is our skinny ones. And again, just like before, I like doing the liquid glue only because it gives you that extra second or two to move things around. You have a very small alley or gap on any of these, but I just thought it really popped the best because you see the color of cardstock that you're using on the rectangles that are not going to be covered by designer series paper. So there's no lack of seeing that this is a black card, but this way it covers a lot of each of the spaces, and I just really liked that look. So you could certainly go back and change the dimensions of the designer series paper that you're cutting. I watched a few videos, figured this out, and then I actually put it together just Joe crud, just like they said. And then I didn't like how much cardstock was showing, so that's when I increased the size of my designer series paper. All right, we should be okay. Cover this. And then I'll take my towel and just blot this a little bit. Yeah, let me actually, too, that's a good point. Let me bring in this paper real quick. Although I've used quite a bit of it, let me show you what you get. So you have this pattern right here, and you have this pattern. Yeah. So it's different than the way Stampin' Up! Usually does the paper. So instead of having lots of different patterns, you have lots of sheets. So you only have 3 different patterns on this side, but you get 4 sheets of each of these. And then, of course, they are reversible. So on the other side, you get the stripes, the polka dots, and the black and white sketched flowers. Now, this is designed to go with the hand-penned bundle, but you can certainly use it for anything. And remember that you could always take a blending tool, or I mean, you could actually take blends, alcohol markers. There's all sorts of ways that you could add color to this paper very quickly and easily. You could even just use a Stampin' sponge and dip it in an ink pad and just rub it on here, and it would change the colors that you're looking at. All right, so there's our front panel. So we're going to flip it, and this is the other one that gets very, very decorated. So I'm going to take 2 of my pattern B, and then I'm going to take the 4 of the short and wide pieces that were 2 by 1 1/4. All right. The other thing I found that was kind of fun was on this, the mock of this one, you can see that I took one piece of Whisper White and did a happy birthday. Now, unfortunately, this was one of my fails because I didn't do a good job butting these up, but I did stamp the happy birthday on a single piece of cardstock, slice it down the middle, and then put it on these. If this was butted up as well as this one is, you would see just a straight happy birthday, which would look really cool. So what that's telling you is, at least on this panel, um, and let me show you where else. You have two chances to use a fairly large greeting on here if that's something that you'd like to do. You just need to cut it somewhere, whether it's in half or in thirds, or 2/3 and 1/3, but you need to cut it on the slice that needs to be open so that the card continues to move. So I could put a panel right here, sliced in half, and that could be an extra large greeting. And then the one that I did prior to this with the tall, skinny editions of designer series paper, you could also do that there. All right, so now we've got two of these going. So I'm just gonna flip this around to get back to the beginning. You could also put a tall, skinny greeting, or even, you could put a greeting right here and just make sure you slice it down the middle so the card can still open. I find that this panel lays the most flat, which is why it's really good to put the greeting here. Now I'm going to open it up, and I'm just going to do, so I have my B pattern there. I have my A pattern. And what I mean by that is the large piece has the A pattern. Then the large piece has the B pattern. So I'm going to put large A pattern on this one. And see, even when we score everything, it still likes to pop up a little bit. So I'm going to put the two remaining A pattern large 2 by 2 5/8 on this one. All right, there we go. And last but not least, there we go. Now I can flip this one more time, and I'm going to put my two remaining B patterns here. Now, as you're considering altering this, I will tell you that I did try and put designer series paper absolutely everywhere. And it wasn't that challenging. I mean, it's just cutting and gluing. But every time you make this, because it's paper and you're measuring and cutting and things are off just slightly, the smaller the space that you're covering with the designer series paper, the harder it is to consistently have just a really small border and get it covered. What I found is these tiny ones here, they change by a 1/16 of an inch or a little bit more. And you really do not have much give when you're trying to cover this much with the designer series paper. So these ones that are much larger are better for using your designer series paper. These ones work just fine. But again, these ones, sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't. And understand that these are not scored spots. These are just because of the nature of the card and its flipping. This is just an extra space that shows up from another layer. So I highly recommend you just cut your designer series paper according to the directions in the PDF that you'll find on my blog, because I think you'll be much happier and not frustrated that you get all these big panels on and you add a few extra ones and they don't fit quite right. All right, so let me bring in the other ones that I completed. If this is the first time that you're watching, my aim is to teach you something new that you can go ahead and start doing for yourself right away in about a half hour to 45 minutes at the max. If you leave a comment below, I would really, really appreciate it. If you're on Team Replay, let me know. These are the cards that I created beforehand, and this is the one that we did just now. So let me flip these real quick. I would start this right here. I find this, for this card, this one laid the most flat, just like this one. Actually, this laid the most flat. You never know which way it's going to go. So this one laid the most flat, and this is the way I started. So hello, friends, and then a couple flips, and then you get happy birthday, and you're back again. This one laid the most flat here, and so did this one. So I do find more success with the flat. Actually, I don't think so. I think this is, yeah, that's a little more. So this one's more flat here, and this one's more flat here. So everybody's going to be a little, each one of them is going to be a little different. And I think that's what makes it unique and fun to send somebody one of these endless, never-ending cards. So this is with the designer series paper from, again, from Celebration, that is free to you with a purchase of $50 or more. The way that I did not actually fussy cut this. If you've been around me for a while, you know I'm not a big fan of fussy cutting. I just don't like doing it. I think it looks gorgeous. So I did use my scan and cut to get all of these cut, and that's the same thing with all of these stockings. They come from another designer series paper from the holiday catalog, and that's how I cut them. But you can see it just, you start going and you just don't want to stop. And again, you can see that some cards lay flat, more flat, one way or the other. It's always one of these two options, but you just don't know which way it's going to go. All right. Pat, it really doesn't take a lot of patience, I promise. If you just follow the simple steps, cut your 2 panels of cardstock and score them, and then cut down the middle, just like we did at the beginning of this presentation. Um, burnish everything, all your scores both ways, so you have the most flexibility going when you assemble the card. And then just use a minimal amount of glue in each of the 4 corners to make everything work. And above all, make sure that these 2 panels, when you're laying them down, move freely but do touch. And the same with the horizontal ones. Make sure they touch, but make sure that they move freely. That's the most important tips when putting a card like this together. All right, thanks, Sue. I really appreciate it. I love this. I'm happy to share it with you. Kathy, I appreciate you being here. Pat, I appreciate you too. And I look forward to seeing all of you and more next week. We will get together again Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So this is Linda with Ink Stamp and Scrap. Thank you very much for watching. Please give the video a thumbs up. Make sure that you subscribe. You should see a little icon in the corner. I'm not sure I'm pointing to the right corner. I'll have to get used to that. And then make sure you subscribe and ring the bell. I do go live every Tuesday at 2 p.m. and then I post again on Thursdays and Saturdays. All right, enjoy. Can't wait to see what you guys make. Have a good one.